So Paul George is not an all-star this season. This has caused some controversy. I think it's understandable, because I think there are probably 3 players who have made the all-star team in the West that I think you could put some good reasoning behind that Paul George should be in over those guys. Let's just talk about Paul George first this season. Defensively, he has been fantastic for OKC. He has been potentially the best defender in the NBA because Kawhi's been injured, Gobert has been injured, and Draymond Green has just been a little worse this season. And then offensively, George has been one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. His true shooting percentage is still nearly around 60%. A lot of that because he gets to the free throw line a decent amount, and he's very efficient from the free throw line, and he's done such a good job of just fitting into what OKC was doing, and he's been great for the Thunder, no doubt about it. The 3 names that I would look at would be Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Karl-Anthony Towns, for who he should be over. I immediately thought of Damian Lillard, but then the more I thought about Lillard, I realized just the carry job that Lillard has to do with the Trailblazers and the efficiency that he has combined with his usage rate, which is over 30%, or I think it's like 29.7 or something. But Lillard's he's just too damn good offensively. He has to be in there, if you ask me, because if he's not there, then the Blazers just kind of fall apart, you know. And then with Klay Thompson and Draymond, I mean, look, they're both very good players, but in the case of Draymond Green and Klay, really, the team that they're on definitely amplifies what they do. I mean, if Klay Thompson was on a team where he was the number 1 scoring option and he was asked to do a bit more as a ball handler and perhaps post up a bit more often, I do think some of his deficiencies would come out more. Because with this Warriors team, there are times when Klay barely has to dribble the ball, and he's able to put up 25 points. Now, I do think his ball handling has become a little underrated at this point, because I think people think that Klay Thompson is like Kyle Korver levels of dribbling. He's a little better than that. Like, there are moments where he beats guys off the dribble and stuff. Even so, I mean, if you force Klay to put the ball on the floor, you can definitely steal the ball from him. You can force him to pick it up. I get it. And again, I do think that type of thing would come out a little bit more on a different team. In the case of Draymond, I mean, number 1, I think his defense has just been a little worse. And his lack of a three-point shot has been becoming more and more a thing. Teams are leaving him wide open all the time now. He's shooting a hot 32% from outside. And, I mean, I understand Draymond's value as a screener, as a playmaker, as a guy who can put the ball on the floor and go coast to coast. Like, Klay Thompson and Draymond Green are 2 very good players, but I think Paul George is just flat out better than both of them. I think he's been better than both of them this season, and I think you can pick either one of them, and he's more deserving of it over any of those 2. Now, if we get to Karl-Anthony Towns, Towns has been better on defense lately, the past couple of weeks, I would say. So credit to him for that. He's looked a little bit better in defending the pick and roll. He also has stopped doing, or hasn't totally stopped, but he's cut down on the thing he would do where he would basically contest everything, even if it wasn't needed to be contested by him. And then his defender, or the guy he would be defending, would just grab an offensive rebound. So he's cut down on those mistakes. He's also needed Thibodeau to bail him out a little bit with having him play a very large chunk of his minutes with Taj Gibson and Jimmy Butler. So good coaching on the part of Thibodeau. But that does hide Towns' lack of defense a little bit. And I think that defense not really becoming a thing until lately gives Paul George a valid reasoning for being over Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, from an offensive standpoint, Towns has been great. He's ridiculously efficient given his responsibility, you know, as a big man who sometimes has to post up, who has to go off the dribble, play in pick and roll, pick and pop, all that. To have a true shooting percentage of nearly 64%, is pretty insane. And I think Towns, depending on where his free throws go for the rest of the season, could be looking at like a 50, 40, 86, 87 kind of season here, which is pretty insane. But if I can go back to defense once again, I think Paul George is definitely deserving of that spot over Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, if we fast forward a year or two and Towns becomes a decent defender throughout the entire season, well, then no, he would deserve it over PG, but I don't think we're there just yet. The other thing that should be mentioned is Jimmy Butler's role for these T-Wolves, and the fact that if Jimmy Butler wasn't here, I think these guys would be not that good and not an 8th seed, or not one of the top 8 seeds, because they pretty much fall apart when Jimmy Butler's not in the game. Now, I guess the counter to that could be, well, if Westbrook wasn't on OKC, then how good would Paul George really look? I think he'd still look better than Towns, mainly because of the defense once again. So, yeah, I think any one of those three, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, or Karl-Anthony Towns, I think Paul George is deserving of the All-Star spot over them. I've heard some people mention Damian Lillard. I would disagree. I think Lillard just does so much for that Blazers team, and his efficiency combined with his usage is just, it's really impressive what Lillard does at the point guard position. I understand that Dame isn't the best defender in the world, but so what? I mean, how many really good offensive point guards have proven at this point that you don't have to be much on defense and you can still have a really positive impact? I mean, Kyrie Irving, Isaiah Thomas, you get it. I don't need to go down all the guys. Lillard being one of them, of course. So anyway, that's going to do it. I think if I say anything more, I'm just going to be repeating myself. Paul George should have been in, and I'm done.